Food, fitness, chiropractic, it's all the same. It's a repetitive game. Nothing does what the adjustment does. Hate it all day long. We are the most superior, most time-tested intervention for spinal-related issues. The research since 1993 validates that.
This guy has more energy than what you can even imagine. Today we have Dr. Zev. Pleasure, brother.
Pleasure, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Zev Mellman is a chiropractor and founder of Dr. Zev TV, known for helping high performers optimize their bodies and bringing that same care to the homeless on the streets and people from all walks of life.
When I go to chiropractic, sometimes I'll have people come up and tell me, hey, dude, you shouldn't do that. They're just making it worse, so you keep on coming in. How do you answer that?
Chiropractic is good for you. That person just doesn't understand it. Right. This is in no way to be disrespectful, but in my mind, it's a lot like racism. The orthopedics that are going to win in 2025 and beyond, the neurologists that are going to win, the primaries, the OBs, the pediatricians who are going to win are the people that are going to advocate for whatever's making that patient better, less dependent on drugs and improving the quality of their life.
One of the things, man, I've seen online, you going out to the street and adjusting the homeless. Why do you do that?
Man, I love it. First of all, it's fun to give people access to something they can't have access to.
Tell us why humans need chiropractic.
There's no bigger biohack, in my opinion, that comes with zero side effects than the chiropractic adjustment done the right way.
Welcome to another episode of a Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada, and as usual, we're bringing experts from all over the world to talk about health, wellness, beauty, and mindset. Today, our guest is local here in South Florida. You've seen this guy all over social media with some of the most elite, and then also with some of our people in our community just out on the street. He is a doctor who takes care of everybody. This is not something that you're just typically used to. This guy has more energy than what you can even imagine. He can bring that energy to you as well, too. This here, you have the adjustment to the stars, and we'll explain why. Today, we have Dr. Zev. Pleasure, brother. Thank you.
Man. Yeah. Yeah. Man,
All right.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank
Welcome
you, man.
to
I
the
appreciate
Healthy
you.
Point of View, man.
I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. So, chiropractic, man. Chiropractic. So, first I want to start off about for people to really get to know who Dr. Zev is.
Yeah.
Right? I want people to understand who that 5-year-old Dr. Zev was.
Yeah.
Right? And I know you brought your son here with you.
Yeah.
So, you know, I want to talk about who were you when you were that kid that led you up today to do what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. The man behind the mission.
Right.
So, you know, I was on the receiving end of chiropractic before I was on the serving side. I was about 13, 14 years old, super active and athletic since day one, my whole life. I remember I was climbing a tree across the street from my house. I was really high up. This was a high tree. There was a reptile. I believe it was a snake. Oh my God. Let go, landed on my back. Couldn't breathe for about 5 minutes. Get up, everything's fine. No neck pain, no mid-back pain, no low back pain. 3 months later, asthma. Develop a breathing problem. So out of nowhere, I get shortness of breath playing sports. Mom takes me to the doctor. They auscultate my lungs. Say, yeah, that fits the bill. He has asthma. He might grow out of it. He might not, but take this inhaler. So one inhaler works. Obviously, drugs work. It did its job, saved me, you know, got me up and running. I could breathe again. One inhaler, though, led to another inhaler. And then probably about a year of that and being on that medical merry-go-round, and I started getting pneumonia, bronchitis a lot. I was getting run down a lot. I was trying to date girls. My skin was breaking out a lot just because, you know, the inhaler use over a long period of time is a steroid. Right. You know, so my liver was stressed. My skin was eliminating, all that stuff. And we were just sitting down one night as a family having dinner, and I'm like, and I wasn't doing well. I already missed about a week of school again. And my mom was like, man, this just isn't it. What the hell's going on, man? Out of nowhere. You know, I was normal. I was healthy. Everything was good. So she brought me Plan C, chiropractic, man. Brought me to a chiropractor. You know, and that chiropractor was the first to take an x-ray of my spine, palpate my spine, feel around, see what the muscle tonicity was like, what my range of motion was like, help me understand mechanics a little bit more. Not that she did some type of functional assessment, but just kind of zoomed out for a little bit and then zoomed in and said, hey, well, this is what we're working with. I had about a 10-degree hook in my thoracolumbar spine. And she, you know, led me to believe that, hey, this was contributing to your breathing problem. And if we can get movement back into your spine, you could potentially get bigger breaths, deeper breaths, and get a little more of a relaxation to you. You know, I had a lot of rigidity in my back, but I had no pain. which is something we should talk about because General Pop every day is walking around. Millions of people are walking around unaware that something's wrong in their body. They just don't have any pain, so they think they're okay until they either go and get checked or they go for a sophisticated test, a blood test, a thermography scan, an MRI scan, right? And then they say, oh my God, I didn't even know I had calcium here. I had this here, right? So these things are always in the making. So even as a child, I didn't have pain, I was super pliable, very flexible, elastic. But when she started to touch my spine, I was like, oh, shit, oh. So anyway, she was the first to connect the dots. The X-ray spoke for itself. A picture's worth 1,000 words, Sam, and started adjusting me. And I took the biggest breath when she did the hug adjustment, right? And opened me up. I took a breath like I hit the strongest inhaler. And my asthma wasn't done that day, but I was like, whoa, man, I loved it. And I walked out of that office in a state change. I breathed better. I felt happier, and I was already happy, but I felt optimistic. And about 3 months of repetition and regular care, and I was completely off inhalers. Didn't need another one again.
Wow.
Stopped getting sick. Everything went back to normal within 3 months.
Man, what a story.
Yeah,
What a
and then
story.
I was hooked. I mean, at that point, it was bigger than even asthma. I remember even past asthma, that was my call to action. But
Right.
past asthma, I used to tell my mom all the time. I was like, hey, Mom, can you bring me to the chiropractor? Can you bring me to the chiropractor? I want to go see the doc. I want to get adjusted. I want to get adjusted this week. It just fit, man. It felt right. I felt like my vibration was higher. I felt everything was better. It makes me happier. And to this day, bro, I'm 43 years old. Let's say that was at 14 to 43. I've been getting adjusted every week since. No joke. I'm not just saying that because I'm a
Now,
chiropractor.
who
Bro, I
adjusts
just
you
got
now?
adjusted. My son would verify this. I just got adjusted last night at about 11:30. My older brother's a chiropractor.
Oh, okay.
So we just did
There you
garage adjustments last night before
Yeah.
he flew out today to go adjust somebody. So it's like, it's just who we are. We don't come from chiropractic. We're first gen with it, but it changed all of our lives, his life, my life. It changed my mom's life. That's why she even thought, like, who would think go to a chiropractor for a breathing problem?
Right.
But years prior, when I was a little kid, my mom was hit by a drunk driver. She used to be a professional ballroom dancer with my father.
Okay.
So that's back story. And either way, she couldn't sleep, had dizziness, disorientation, tons of neck pain, and all types of just digestive issues after that incident, right? Because that trauma on her spine threw off her nervous system
Wow.
in various ways,
Right, right.
And long story short, after going through the medical merry-go-round, finally she let a chiropractor touch her neck. And that was her first step to getting off the neck collar, breathing better, sleeping better was a big thing for her. She wasn't sleeping well at all and just got her health back. So she just didn't connect the dots because it wasn't around us. We didn't have anyone in our circle. There was nobody saying like, hey, go to the chiropractor. Like today, it's everywhere in your face. Not just chiropractic, but everything. People are more woke to IVs. People are understanding how to be their own doctors.
Right.
And, we have self-assessment tools, endless. Silicon Valley. You can order anything and they'll send it to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's so much cool stuff out there now. We're well aware. Then we weren't. So she didn't connect the dots. But I guess, at the end of the day, rock hits the bottom and you go, hey, who else can we try? What else can we do? And chiropractic just surfaced back again. And thank God it did, because look at me now. I was born to do this, bro. Sam,
This is your God-given
this
purpose.
is, when I say the man on the mission, like this ain't just a paycheck for me, bro. It never has been.
I can feel the passion, man.
I just get so excited.
Yeah.
It's anytime I have an opportunity, podcast, platform, the streets, anywhere, I have this chip on my shoulder of always wanting to clean the slate for someone if they had a bad experience and then prove them wrong,
love that.
if they're a hater,
So
It's
let
just
me
like-
ask you
yeah.
this. So, man, you got some orthopedic surgeons out there,
Mhm.
neurologists
Yeah.
that are out there that
Yeah.
deal with people with back pain,
Yeah.
spinal issues,
Mhm.
and regular MDs.
Mhm.
Tell us why,
Mhm.
or should I say, tell them
Yeah.
why humans need chiropractic.
Yeah, well, let's start with, chiropractic we didn't invent adjusting spines. So take away chiropractic tomorrow, somebody else is coming in and moving spines. In fact, PTs now want to move spines. It's built into their curriculum. Osteopaths, DOs, right? They're moving spines. A.T. Stills, the father of osteopathy, goes all the way back into him wanting to crack necks and backs as well. His philosophy was it opened up blood supply and improved circulation. D.D. Palmer, back in the day, was founded as the founder of chiropractic, or at least coined the term, and then from there took it. His was nerve interference. Today research says it's both. That the reflexive changes improve neural communication or input into the nervous system, meaning better sensory to the brain. Our bodies work like computers, so it's input output. So that would be input. So when I mechanically make an impulse into the body, I'm improving or sending a signal to the brain. And then in turn, that brain is making an adjustment, sending an output that's motor. So input output, right? So Dee Dee's was input. And then AT Still is the father of osteopathy. So I'm saying that because that's medicine, right? His was the same thing, but it was about blood. So they didn't agree on that, but it was more accepted for circulation than it was for that. And to be fair, I mean, it's easy to nitpick and say, like, oh, our history is a little wonky. There's parts in it where, like, I've had people send me Joe Rogan podcasts where they're like, bro, look at him, just destroy. It's so easy. So many guests can come on and say, like, I didn't have a good experience. And then you go back and look at our history and you cherry pick one thing. But at the end of the day, it just, the science wasn't there. The understanding of what actually was happening, it was all theory. And now we know what's right and what's not right more than ever. But they
Right.
used to say, the reason I say that, Sam, is because they used to say, well, it was a bone on a nerve, and that was causing nerve interference, and chiropractors were pushing in the bone and popping it back into place, and that would restore this signal. And we know, like, very, very, very small percentage of the population could technically even have a hard bone on a delicate soft nerve. And that, so we know that's not it anymore.
Right. Right.
So it's they were both right in their own ways. Just we needed time to go on to say, hey, now we really understand what the process is. If I had a medical doctor, an orthopedic, and a surgeon of any type in there, I mean, first of all, I'd start with some of your colleagues, like Dr. I think his name's Kirkcaldy Wallace, Canadian orthopedic, very famous orthopedic physician. Huge advocate of chiropractic. So this isn't just every doctor in the world is disagreeing with chiropractic. You have
Right.
some on board, you have some that aren't. But guys like him were big, big advocates of chiropractic because he understood beyond pharma, beyond all the BS and the parroting of information that's really misinformation. He understood that the mechanical input into the spine and what it did for breaking up things like scar tissue and moving inflammation and improving something called mechanoreception, which is positive stimulation, positive mechanical input back into the body, could help resolve conditions naturally. And even if drugs needed to be there, they could work together to help the patient recover even faster. In
Absolutely.
fact, this guy has tons. He's published tons of good stuff out there. Nothing new because he's since passed. But he's just a guy that his research I've always read because it's just fascinating because he always took it from something called the pain gate. Have you ever heard of this before?
No.
Should we go into this a little
Yeah.
bit?
Let's do
Okay,
it.
so the pain gate's cool because it applies not just to chiropractic. It was developed by a guy named Melzack and Walls. It's never been disproven to this day. It's called the pain gate theory. So, I mean, it's legit. But anyways, the pain gate theory is something that orthopedic would use to help his patients. And in his research, he would explain why the chiropractic adjustment is closing the pain gate. So the pain gate, guys, is when someone has an injury, a trauma, or any type of inflammation over a while, our nervous system essentially, think of it like, opens up this floodgate and becomes more exposed to pain. It's almost like more sensitized to it. So everyday mundane activities are now causing you pain. Like, hey, I used to be able to take out the trash; it was never an issue. But now every time I rotate to the left, all the alarms go off. I'm in pain. Why? My injury was a year ago, or what's happening? I'm feeling things more often. And we say, hey, well, it's age. He'd say it wasn't age; it was your pain gate. It's that between the chemicals that we eat and poor mechanics internally, like in
And
our
this is
spine,
gate as
and our
like GATE.
GATE, like
Or
a
okay.
gate. Yeah. So it's called the pain gate theory.
Okay.
And basically, he would say is that one of the ways to close the pain gate so people can start the healing process, of course, there's nutritional protocols,
Mm.
but that nutrition, like we always say, like wheatgrass won't move joints.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you still got to move your body,
Right.
So food's food, right? But then mechanics are mechanics. So we
Right.
still need to do something about that. And he would say the adjustment contributes to closing the pain gate. So he took it more to a physiological level and helping his colleagues understand that, dude, this is the fastest way to get someone to recover, let's say, from a herniated disc or a bulging disc.
Right.
So, if I had to walk them through the process, that's what I'd say. I was like, I'd tell them that, at the end of the day, well, a chiropractor might not describe it correctly, and some of them maybe not doing it correctly. Maybe they don't have the highest integrity, or they're not a master of their craft. Like I look at myself as a Michelin chef, and unfortunately, chiropractic isn't standardized. So it's like, you can go to 20 different chiropractors and get 20 different experiences. It's not like I tell my clients, it's not ibuprofen 800. No
Right.
matter where
Right.
you go, it's the same. It's unfortunate. They could be loving, they could be caring, they could be very knowledgeable, super smart, and very open minded. But at the end of the day, I've got to get you on the table. At the end of the day, I've got to put my hands on your spine if I
Right.
want to match lip service with real service. And that's what really separates, and creates the rest of the experience for people. So I'd say at the end of the day, you could exercise, you could train, you could foam roll, you could do a million different things. You could do fascial work, you could do functional movements and training, but none of that stuff moves the bone. And that's what chiropractor does. I mean, our unique contribution for everyone out there listening is is the movement of the spine, localized movement to stuck, stiff, and restricted joints, improving integrity and input back into the body so the body can make the adjustments. And reflexively, by making that adjustment, that crack, that pop, everything that we're doing, we're having a lot of reflexive changes within the body locally right there. We're moving inflammation off. We're restoring movement. We're getting the tissue to calm down. We're getting all these cool changes locally. But then globally, there's a lot of cool things that happen, like in terms of how that message goes to the brain. What message goes to the brain? What's happening to the tone of our muscle when I make an adjustment? How does adjusting someone's neck affect their low back? How does adjusting their foot affect their hips? You know what I mean?
Right.
We're all connected, and that's chiropractic. So I have orthos that refer to me, not many, so I can't be the guy who's like, oh, well, I have this and that. I don't. But I definitely have and know several that are big advocates. And this is what I can tell you. I could hop on a Joe Rogan podcast or yours right now and defend it to the cows come home. And what will happen is you're going to say one thing, I'm going to say other. I'm going to reference this study, you're going to reference that. We're going to walk out of here. It's either going to be 0-0 or I'm going to come out slightly on top. But there's no magic bullet. There's no magic article that I could show you, Sam, and you go, damn, I get it. But I can show you enough, and I could also tell you on the other side, anything you would ask of me, if you were the orthopedic surgeon, I would ask back in turn of you, and you can't prove it either. So what's happened and what the medical model is guilty of is always putting the burden of proof on the chiropractor, yet they fail to do it. And a great example is the opioid crisis.
Yeah.
The first RCT, they'd always say, like back in the day, this is how I describe it to my patients, is that, in the early, let's say 1895, right? Like all the way into the 1920s, and then even 1930 and 40, a lot of it was just anecdotal. They had an idea, like we were just talking about earlier, theory, hey, this should work like this. And to be honest, the shit was working.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
People
people were
felt it.
raving fans,
Yeah.
bro.
Right.
People were feeling change. They couldn't explain it. That's why we say adjustments don't lie. It was like, bro, no matter what I say or do, no matter what your doctor tells you, you know the feeling you get.
I can attest to it.
That's what I'm saying. Like nowadays, people used to be more persuaded by their doctor,
Right.
but now they're like, bro, I couldn't look to the left. I got movement back in my neck, and now all of a sudden I have more range of motion.
Right.
Well, more range of motion means better blood flow, better nerve flow. That's called Hilton's Law. That's not chiropractic. We just use it to explain it. So we didn't invent that. That's why I said earlier, I'm like, remove chiropractic, man. The next person's up. People were adjusting spines and cracking necks and backs way before chiropractors were. Even the founder used to say, I'm just the first to do it with the spinous process, meaning to bring specificity to it.
Okay.
So it's not like you say, hey, I had this idea one day. I woke up and I said, hey, I'm going to create this. Bohemian bone setters, Asian cultures, Greek, you name it. Everybody had bone setters in there. I mean, movies have alluded to, you remember Batman when he's in prison, the Christian Bale series?
Okay. Yeah.
The Russian guy in jail adjusts his back. The Batman's hanging, his back is blown out. He has no power, can barely walk. Guy hangs him, tractions out his spine, adjusts his low back, says, "You have L5," or says something like, I haven't seen it in years. I just remember, and bam, huge thrust into his low back. Batman screams, and then 2 days later, he jumps out.
So that's
and
really what
he
motivated you
escaped.
to become a chiropractor.
No, but you know what? I was like, that's our science. No, I'm just kidding. No, but my point is like they were making a play. Like people have been doing this forever. We just have mastered it. We are specific about it, and we can get reproducibility. Like we are leading the pack and have forever in terms of this style of healthcare, And there's so much battle. There's so much I don't want to go too far in any one direction and then just get lost. But, at the same time, like, bro, there's a time and place for medicine. Like medicine has saved my life several times. Anyone who says, hey, medicine isn't there's not a place for it, which chiropractic definitely does, because it's so easy to throw medicine under a bus, bro. It's just easy. Their stats are terrible, but at the same time, they save lives. And I always would say, like, if you're going to throw medicine under the bus and it's, you just haven't had the experience yet where your back was against the wall. You know what I mean? So I think medicine attacks chiropractic because we're always attacking them as well, even though they throw us in jail first, so in all fairness, rightfully so. But, today, you got to say, hey, we can both coexist, and it's always best for everybody. And medicine will never, there's no drug that will move a bone at the end of the day. Medicine does not fix mechanics. Yeah. You know what I mean? It does not fix. It changes chemistry, but it doesn't change mechanics. Yeah.
The allopathic traditional medicine with like medical doctors.
Yeah.
Right. One thing that I've noticed in I'd say within the last 20 years, a lot of medical doctors are not putting their hands on patients,
Yeah,
right?
dude. Good point.
So when you start looking at how they're assessing the patients,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not that 2-page blood work, which don't
Yeah.
get me started on that,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's like, how do you really know what's happening with your patient?
Yeah.
And one thing that I've seen in
Mm-hmm.
chiropractic is a lot of chiropractors, they engage in a lot of Eastern medicine,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Acupuncture,
Mm-hmm.
doing assessments, looking at the
Yeah.
tongue,
Yeah. For
looking at
sure.
the nail beds,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
nutrition, right?
Yeah. Bowel
So
movements.
bowel
Yeah.
movements.
Everything.
And
Yeah.
I've
For
even
sure.
seen chiropractors.
Yeah.
Well, they'll actually
Palpate the
palpate
abdomen.
the
Yeah. For sure.
100%.
Man, our training is palpation. I mean, we're hands on all the time.
So
You know.
so why such different
Mm-hmm.
assessments? And I'm speaking from personal experience that I've
Mm-hmm.
had back injuries.
Yeah.
And when I worked at the fire department, they were quick to send me to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
Broward General,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of medications,
Mm-hmm.
anti-inflammatory, this and that, and
Yeah.
pain
Yeah.
pills, and it never fixed the problem.
Yeah.
I was on light duty for several months,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, this can't be it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even sit on the toilet to take
Yeah.
a dump,
Yeah.
right? And then it wasn't until I actually started seeing a chiropractor,
Mm-hmm.
dude, instantly I
Mm-hmm.
became a new
Yeah.
person.
Adjustments don't lie.
You know, so I want to talk
So
about
what do you think
the
happened in there
Eastern.
that instantly? Like, first of all, I hate the instantly. The Amazon. I always tell people, your body's not Amazon Prime. Healing takes time. That's
Yeah,
my line, by the way. Don't steal it.
mine was truly, it was instant.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong. I always
yeah.
think like I want
Not
it, but the
everybody's
problem
like that,
is
but
it
yeah.
sets up an expectation that is
Something
like,
was out of
whoa.
place,
Yeah.
and as a matter of fact, and this is the other thing because we talk a lot about the spine, but
Yeah.
chiropractors also adjust arms, legs, feet.
Yeah, for sure. Not everybody,
And my
but, yeah,
left
it's
foot
different. Mhm.
was out of place,
Okay.
and I really didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wearing my work boots and
Mhm.
stuff,
Yeah.
and adjusted my foot that I've never had that done before.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
Isn't that
it,
nice?
it was a complete change,
Dude,
man.
it's
It was
awesome.
like
Just
everything changed. Like my hip wasn't so offset.
Yeah.
Everything.
what you're saying, Sam, is everything moved differently.
Right.
The load on your tissue and your joints and your body when you got off the table just felt different.
Yeah.
And that's healing. And that's the state we want everyone to be in on a regular basis. And it doesn't mean someone can't take a medicine. It doesn't mean, one doesn't work with the other. It's a philosophical difference. Yes, we have philosophies, that aren't the same, and we think differently on certain things, but there's no denying why wouldn't a doctor want you to feel that? You know what I
Right.
mean? Why would he forbid that?
Exactly.
So I remember real quick, I want to get to no hands-on because there's actually something that you might find really interesting on this in terms of like doctors nowadays don't touch patients. They don't put their hands on people. There's
Why is that?
yeah, dude, I have no idea. But I want to give you a statement that Elon Musk's uncle, who's Dr. Scott Halderman, who's a chiropractor but also a neurologist as well.
Okay.
So he shares both backgrounds, and his father was a chiropractor, interestingly enough.
Mm.
But anyway, he put out an article one time, and he said, I've been to chiropractic school. I'm a chiropractor. I've been to medical school. I'm a neurologist. And he's like, one thing I could tell you is in med school, you never flip the cadaver over. You don't
Wow.
touch. You
Right,
know what I
right,
mean? That was
right,
his thing.
right.
And he's like, they were asking him, well, what's the difference? And he was saying the one thing you just said, Sam, is like they just don't touch.
Yeah.
And he said that's a huge missing link, especially since he had training in both. He sees the value in both, but he said you got to get hands on.
Yeah.
You got to feel. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But what I wanted to tell you earlier, in terms of philosophy and just in differences, is I found that when I was going back for my follow-ups back in the day when I was a kid and had asthma, that the doctors were scoffing when we were like, no, I think I'm better, like I don't need it anymore, like our checkups. And when we were telling them what we were doing, they were making us feel like crap, like dog crap about it, like we were going and seeing some witchcraft voodoo doctor. Like I remember it, like it was
Wow.
yesterday. So when my clients tell me now, like, oh, I went for a checkup and the guy scoffed that I don't have migraines anymore and I don't have to take Topamax, the prescribed medication they gave me, because I didn't feel I needed it and I haven't needed it for months. And said, well, what are you doing differently? Oh, I went to the chiropractor, and they do
Right.
that look. Well, what I want to say is I remember asking him, well, what about the adjustment is helping me breathe better? Can you help me with that? Like if you're so negative on it, like, and you feel that way, can you explain it? And the word I always got was like placebo,
Wow.
and here's the thing, to the same question you asked me earlier is like, what would I tell a medical doctor? Please, doc, explain to me how adjusting the spine can improve a child's breathing or even my breathing to this day. Explain to me every time I get off the table to this day, I take an involuntary sigh. Can you neurologically explain or orthopedically explain in my body why it happens? And I've never found one person on the fly. I'm sure someone listening right now, one of your doctors, and subscribers, will go and research it and try to put it together.
Right,
But
right.
no one organically ever knew. And it made me think, like, what do you like? How could you forbid something you can't even explain or don't even understand? So one of the first things when I got into chiropractic school, like deep into it, it's like you don't get into neurology 101 day one, but as I got into it, the first thing I wanted to understand was how did the adjustment affect my breathing? Like really 1 plus 1 plus, where did this
Right.
all go? I needed to connect the dots. And I think people might find this fascinating. If you want, I'll walk people through it so they can understand the big idea and
Yeah,
we
no,
zoom
I,
out,
I, I want to know.
so I can give more clarity beyond like input and output. Is when the joints in our spine, and this speaks also to what you were saying about out of place. So there's two things here. Is a lot of people think that the old school model, the 80s model of chiropractic was bone out of place, put bone back in. So a lot of times to this day, clients, just because it's embedded into our culture and our languaging now, is people will say, I got something out of place. But the reality is that nothing's out of place. Your spine isn't that fragile. Bones aren't popping out. Chiropractors aren't pushing bones back in. And then you need to go to the gym and tighten your core and neck muscles and hold things into place and then sleep this way and get in and out and lift perfectly.
Right.
We're pliable, we're elastic. Chiropractors aren't adjusting bones out of place. We're restoring movement to stuck, stiff joints. That's the day in and day out operations. There's more, but that's the bread and butter right there. So what I mean by that is I always explain to my clients like this. You got a sliding door that's designed to move on a track, right?
Right.
Okay, now we've all had a sliding door that had stuff in the debris. Maybe it was 1970s, early 2000s, South Florida weather, all the
Yeah.
stuff, erosion and stuff. So the slider doesn't work as well. So if it's not moving as smooth as it should, it still moves, but it's harder to move, right?
Right.
Well, that's our joints. They get scar tissue from inflammation, food, toxins, lifestyle, stress, posture, repetitive stress injuries, autoimmune issues, toxins, drugs, all these different things. At the end of the day, all roads lead back to inflammation. In orthopedics, not chiropractic 101, is this: the resolution of inflammation is fibrosis or scar tissue. And that's what chiropractors are adjusting. We're adjusting the glue inside and around these joints that are limiting, not completely stopping, that are limiting full range of motion within the joint capsules themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So the discs in our spine and our joints, those are the things local to the spine. That's like our real estate. Then you get into ligaments, tendons, muscles, soft tissue, and all that stuff, which is all connected. But the real estate of the spine within the spine is the facet joint, the joints, and the discs. And these guys are sharing in load every day and taking load and moving and absorbing shock and all these things. And our job's to find where they're not moving as well as they should and put movement back in. And that's that pop. That's that bomb. Get in there and open that up. And when we do that, first thing that happens is better nerve flow and blood flow to that area. But we maximize range of motion within that spot.
Right.
But when joints don't move well, this is what happens. And this is what happened to me. It was when I fell out of the tree, and probably even before then. It just was an accelerator. Okay, my joints locked up and got really stiff. And we would go, oh, well, maybe it was muscular. But soft tissue doesn't control the whole show.
Right.
Hard tissue does as well. Controls, a huge piece of that sensory input into the body. So what happened was that blunt trauma had created a lot of stiffness and restriction in my spine.
Okay.
So all that stiffness and restriction sends a message up into the brain, specifically into an area called the amygdala. Now, we know this now. Back in the day in 1895, they didn't know this. In 1920, they didn't know this. But medicine, their science has shown us everything we need to know to put all the pieces of the puzzle together. We know the amygdala is the emotional center of the brain. It's part of that stress state. It's what gets someone into the fight or flight, right? So what happened is joints don't move well. It fires off something called nociception. Nociception is a receptor like a Wi-Fi router in the body, and these receptors are relaying information to the brain, like the amygdala, about damage, degeneration, inflammation, tension, posture, stress, all these things that could potentially contribute to pain or disease or dysfunction in the body. That's this guy's job. He's relaying that information to the brain, right? So what happens is when our joints don't move well, this isn't chiropractic, that fires off more nociception. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Think of nociception like noise.
Right.
Okay, so that's more static. That's more noise to the brain. So that area of the brain is the amygdala. From the amygdala, it goes to something called the HPA, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. From there, it goes to the hypothalamus. And that then affects things like creates stress, norepinephrine, cortisol. All these different things get manufactured, not at massive amounts, but low-grade amounts. So all of this nociception or noise from restriction within my own neck and back, your own foot even, any joint in the body has those nerve endings. Any joint in the body has those GTOs and has these things in them that are either relaying noise or positive input to the body. That's why exercise is so good for us, because it stimulates the opposite, the antithesis of nociception, which is mechanoreception, or positive input, proprioception, into
Right.
the brain. It's why we feel like kings and queens when we walk out of the gym
Right.
or
Right.
when we take a class. It's flooding our brain with such positive endorphins and movement
Right.
that then our body makes different chemistry, right? That's why we feel so good. We
Yeah.
walk in like, bro, I got to go work out. I had a stressful day, but I walk out differently, right? That didn't adjust you. Your chemistry changed. So my point now, back to chiropractic, back to medicine, is that they couldn't explain to me that stiffness in the joints fired to this area of the brain, which fired to that, which fired to that, which put my body into a stress state. Fight or flight physiology, bro, low grade. So my body had cortisol, had norepinephrine, which was driving more muscle tone changes, which was making me tighter, which was affecting local blood flow. You see
wow.
the cascade, that's what I'm
Right.
saying, which affected digestion, immunity, all these different things on top of the steroid.
throws
All these
everything
things
off.
threw everything off, bro.
Right.
So it's not that, hey, I could have taken cod liver oil. I could have done a nebulizer. I could have gotten to a salt room. I could do hot and cold. I could do all these different things. Yes, they all work, and I'm a big advocate of them. But the one thing they don't do, to circle back around to answer the question, is they don't move the spine. And if I don't get that spine moved to change that nociception local to that disc and joint, then I'm not changing what I need to change to
Right.
get my body truly out of that stress state or that stress physiology. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's mechanics 101 there with chiropractic, is that I can go to the gym and foam roll, but the foam roll isn't going to take my spine and joints into that periphysiological space where that therapeutic benefit lives to break or close what Dr. Kirkcaldy Wallace would say, or Willis, is the pain gate. You see, my pain
Right.
gate was open. And that was part of the process that helped me close that so I could feel and function better. So the physiology and the chemicals made in my body were more like, hey, open up my breath. In fact, that's immediately why I took the hugest breath after that first adjustment. She unlocked that part of my spine, which flooded my brain in a different area, my cerebellum, because they take two different tracks, positive input versus negative. But it flooded my body with stuff that told my breath to open, which told my muscles to relax, which told my, arterioles and my blood flow to go, and to vasodilate, and helped move inflammation off my body so I can feel and function better, bro.
And it closed
And that is,
the
and
pain gate, right?
and it helped close the pain gate, and that's part of that process. Now, again, it's like we get into the world where it's like we're all competing for the same space. So naturally people go, well, which one's better? Should I do this or this? And I always explain to people, you can cold plunge, you could hot, you could do IVs, you could do all, they're good for you. But so is chiropractic, so is getting adjusted, and they're going to do what those aren't going to do.
Right.
And just like I'd say the same thing, like, bro, you got to exercise, bro. Like, my adjustments aren't building strength into your body. Like, you got to get your heart rate up. There's other things you have to do.
Right.
And part of the battle over the last probably 20 plus years is that somehow people got like convinced that it was like chiropractic did everything. You know what I mean? And it's like, then the haters would come in and say like, oh, you only tell your patients to get adjusted. You don't tell them to exercise. You don't tell them to do these other things. And then that side of the world will say, well, that's all you have to do. Like, how many videos are on IG right now on YouTube? Like, hey, tell your chiropractor to F off or screw your chiropractor. You'll never need a chiropractor again. You know what I mean?
Right,
If you
right.
just do these movements. And I always laugh at those because I'm like, dude, you could eat organic in Whole Foods. You still got to brush your teeth. You know what I mean? Like the laws of repetition and inflammation and stress and tension on our body, like there's upkeep. You know what I mean? There's never been a toothpaste that says, hey, if I use this toothpaste, I don't have to brush for 2 months. That's amazing. It holds. No, as long as I eat, I'm
Right.
going to build plaque. And
Right.
if I leave that plaque on my teeth and I don't brush, I'm going to have a cavity. I'm going to have gingivitis.
Yeah.
I'm going to have all these things, right? So it's the same thing with the body, and I don't want to get too far down that path. But, that is at the core, though, Sam, of what's going on with, a lot of doctors are walking around hating chiropractors and they can't even explain what we do. You know
Right,
what I mean?
right.
And I find that sad. And I remember seeing that as a kid when it was my own condition. And now I still hear it to this day, even at 43, when I'm adjusting a lot of people. People are like, oh, my doctor told me not to go to the chiropractor, my TP. Do they even know what chiropractor, can they explain it to you? Can they sit down and educate you in a calm way and say, this is why I don't like chiropractic?
Right.
And funny enough, we should probably get into this, but is the stroke conversation, because you see that all over social media as well. A lot of doctors scare patients into saying, oh, well, they're going to kill you. They stroke patients out.
So let's talk about some of this
Uh-huh.
negative stigma
Yeah.
that's out there.
There's just so much,
And-
so
Like for example,
Mhm.
and I want you to answer to
Yeah.
this. When I go to chiropractic,
Yeah.
and do a session,
Mhm.
and someone who becomes aware that I'm doing it,
Mhm.
sometimes I'll have people come up and tell me, it's like, hey, dude, you shouldn't do that
Mhm.
because what the chiropractor is doing, they're just making it worse so you keep on coming in?
Yeah.
How do you answer that?
That's like saying you go to the gym and get worse, so you got to keep coming back. You know, that's it. They're just, dude, chiropractic is good for you. That person just doesn't understand it.
Right.
I always say, like, a lot of our stuff, this is in no way to be disrespectful or saying it's the same, but in my mind, you know, it's a lot like racism. Like, you know, you have these kids growing up hating Jews and blacks and Asians and Spanish, but anybody who's not them, right?
Right.
Because their parents did or their background did, but they get to a place in their life and they don't even understand why. They're just repeating the same thing over and over
Right.
again. And that's those people that tell you that, you know. You say, well, can you show me what you read to help me understand why you think that a chiropractor every time you come in is damaging you and you need to come back? You know, I always explain it like, bro, when you go from eating McDonald's every day to changing your diet, right? You feel better, don't you?
Right.
Right? I mean, you
Right.
drop 10, 20 pounds, your
Yeah.
blood flow's different, body feels loose, joints feel good, right? Everything's
Yeah.
good, right? But the minute you stop dieting or you stop watching what you eat, do you feel better or worse?
Oh, you're gonna get worse.
You feel worse. So
Yeah.
what do you have to do?
You got to go back.
You
to
got to
the
go back.
thing.
But you
Right.
see, your body it adapts to that higher level of performance.
Right.
So it goes, bro, I don't want to go back there. The minute you start introducing foods that drive inflammation back in your body, regardless of your dietary choice, you go, damn, I don't feel the same. I got to get back on my foods, right?
Right.
That's chiropractic, bro. What happens is people get tapped in, they get plugged in, they get adjusted for whether it's a care plan or they get a one-time thing and they're just getting adjusted. They go, damn, that range of motion feels great. 2 days later, they're like, oh, shit, I'm so locked up. I need to go back. Then that guy's like, I told you. They're messing you up. That's why you got to go back. No, you just felt what normal is for the first time in 10 years, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now your body knows, like, hey, I could do something about that. And the whole other thing is like, bro, are we adjusting off x-rays? What are we doing? Like, what does your spine even look like? Are you going and popping in just when you know you have a kink in your neck and you've lost 15 degrees to the left? Or do you know, like, look, I have mild degeneration at C5, C6, and I have old injuries in there and tons of scar tissue, you know? So it's like, I need to get it taken care of, you know? Like, what's one adjustment going to do, bro? You could be the best trainer. You could be LeBron James's trainer. Yeah, I'm not saying he's the best, but I'm just saying, like, you know, that's the name. Let's say he has access to the best, right? Or who he thinks is the best. Bro, you could spend 5 hours with his trainer. Are you going to walk out any different in one day?
No.
No, hell no,
No.
bro. You might have had a
It
great
takes time.
session
Yeah.
for 5 hours, but bro, your body's gonna look the exact same. Your labs, if anything, might be off 5 hours of training. But you get my point, right? It's repetition. And chiropractic's no different, bro. Food, fitness, chiropractic, it's all the same. It's a repetitive game. The difference is people, when they say, hey, why do you have to keep going back? They must have not had a good experience. Because everybody that I take care of, they always say this when they get off the table: when can I come back?
Right.
You know why? Because it's good for you and they feel the difference. And when the business model is right, you see, part of why that guy would say to you, why do you have to keep coming back? They're damaging you, is probably because he thinks the chiropractor's making money every time you come in, right? So they're stringing you along. And that's a business model problem. That's not chiropractic's problem. Like,
But see,
dentists teach you got to brush your teeth every day or you're
Right.
going to lose your
But
teeth.
that's part of the stigma stuff too, right? And one of the things, especially here in Florida,
Yeah.
you got a lot of chiropractors. And listen, in any industry, there's a few bad apples in a bunch.
Thanks for saying
right?
that. Yeah, for sure.
But here in Florida, the whole pip,
rampant.
the personal
Scammers.
the pip injuries, you know.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
it's crazy. You know, the
It is.
ambulance chasers are out there.
Yeah, for sure.
So a lot of people they see these chiropractors that are driving the Lamborghinis and the
Yeah.
Ferraris and
Yeah.
all this other stuff,
Yeah.
and they're like, oh, these are guys who just want to make money.
Yeah.
But then also, there's different levels of chiropractic.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Like you go to one chiropractor who's all in, and
Yeah.
who's like studied all the Eastern medicine, who
Yeah.
has the acupuncture, has the T-Rex machine, has
Yeah, yeah.
decompression.
Yeah, all these
has
cool toys.
All the cool toys to really help manipulate,
Yeah.
you know, the body.
Yeah.
But then you got, and I'll just say how it is because I've been
Yeah,
there. You
just
go to,
say it like
you
it
go
is.
to the joint,
Yeah.
right? And it's just like this 20-year-old kid who just graduated
Right.
chiropractic school or
Right.
whatever, and it's basic.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, what do people
The
have
level-
to really understand here?
Well, I think at the end of the day, what I always tell people, because I get a ton of messages, you know, over IG, which is my main active platform. So that's just where I say I get my messages from, is people from all over have tell me, hey, dude, I vibe with you. You look authentic. You look like you know what you're doing. I want to find someone like you in, you know, Europe or, you know, Texas or wherever they might be. And I always just tell them the same thing, man. First of all, you know, obviously look at reviews, look at pictures. You're going to have to unfortunately pay first visit fees. You know, like I have a client, for example, during COVID, they moved to Texas. His wife was a traveling nurse. She got a good gig out there, took that. The family was under my care for a while, so they were big fans and advocates, and I had converted them in a sense of like they used to not believe in chiropractic, not think it was anything. Like I said, she's a nurse, he's a business exec, and it just wasn't their vibe. And then, one after another, Edgar's just doing well. Then his wife wants to get in. Then everybody starts getting adjusted. And is like, bro, this is not what I thought it was. Thanks for showing us a different experience. Like we didn't like pizza, and then we had this pizza. Now we like this pizza. Nice. So now we're moving to Texas. We want to find a pizza similar. So he wrote me back. He would write me and say, bro, I've spent like thousands of dollars on initial visits at chiropractor's office trying to find the right one. So the advice I always give him is, look for a chiropractor who looks like he knows how to adjust, because regardless of the tools, the toys, and anything that they have, whether it's the joint or somewhere else, I'm not going to throw anyone under a bus. You want to find a chiropractor, regardless of the setting. I don't care if it's on the street, sometimes like I am, that loves what he does and knows how to adjust, because that's what chiropractors do. Right. Okay. At the end of the day, PTs can do a lot of things. Chiropractors could do a lot of things. There's so much crossover. Even massage therapists in certain states and places. I mean, I'm not so up to date with the laws, but I believe to a degree, I mean, from stories I hear, even at Massage Envy, some of these massage therapists are adjusting people's backs, oh, wow. Trainers are adjusting backs. MMA coaches are walking and twisting backs, people like we're 2025, bro. Like everyone's trying to be a chiropractor, But my point is find a chiropractor, look for someone who looks like they know how to adjust. Sometimes that word is sports chiropractic. Like a guy who deals with a lot of sports is usually going to be, or a gal is going to be, he or she is going to be very hands-on. You know what I mean? And I think that's a good start.
They got to have some muscle on them too, man. Yeah. At least if you're adjusting me,
I normally would say, yeah, but man, I've had some killer freaking adjustments by some people who've never lifted a weight in their life, bro. Because a lot of it is really leverage and speed, right. And learning how to like contort the body in a way.
Like you adjusted Shaq, wow. Man. And when you
bro, there's Shaq, so there's amendments, Sam. There's amendments.
Like
there's
you
amendments.
can do it, but I've seen some other chiropractors where it's just like,
there's there's no way. Yeah. Like I'm not. There's amendments to that rule, but I'm saying for general pop, bro, like I've had some killer adjustments by some people that have just never touched weights. But yeah, it does help to have strength, especially if you're going to do it on huge people. So you could do it consistently as well. You might be able to get it once, but to do Shaq once a month or every week, you better have. You better start working out, bro. You're gonna need to have endurance there.
By the way, man?
Adjusting Shaq.
I mean,
I always say like when people ask me,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not just saying it, because I love that guy, and just because the whole world loves that guy.
Yeah, of course.
But when people usually ask me like, who's one of your favorite people to touch? Obviously, I grew up watching Shaq, so and I was a big fan. But dude, like he's probably the most like amazing guy. Like Shaq is freaking incredible, man. Yeah, like his heart's bigger than he is. I could just spend the rest of this time talking Shaq stories in my office, of how he plays Uno, and checkers. I like, he just has this gift of being so present and larger than life already, of making you feel like you're the only person in the room for 2 minutes. Wow. Versus sometimes we'll get around a politician or a high profile individual who's got to shake a lot of hands, but you feel like they weren't there. You know what I mean? Like they're an empty body and you're just shaking hands. Shaq has the ability. I'll tell you, when Shaq has come into my office for the next hour and a half, everyone who gets on the table after him is like, oh my God, I just talked to Shaq and he told me that, like, he just has this gift, bro, of like slowing down time like Santa Claus.
That's amazing.
And making you feel like you're the only person in the room. Like Shaq has played Uno with people in my office, checkers with people in my office. He has asked to not skip. I remember one time he was running an errand, popped in. Bro, there were only like 5 people in my office. And those 5 people were all like, no, take care of Shaq. I'm like, yeah, Shaq, hop on the table. I got you, bro. And he's like, no, I'm going to run some errands. I'll come back. I was like, Shaq, I got you right now. Like, I don't want to lose you. While you're here, who knows what your schedule will take you. So let's just take care. And he's like, no, I'll come back. And I remember the same day he did come back, and he came back during prime time, and my office was packed. It was about an hour wait. And we got him on the table. The family's like, please, yeah, take care of Shaq. Like, I don't mind. And this guy got off the table and walked, the way my office is, I have like a semi-open adjusting area with 3 adjusting bays. So I walk back and forth, like I have this pass-through all the way through back. So I just go back and forth nonstop. And he came off the second table and went through my pass-through and went to the first table where these 2 little girls were. And he started playing with them and picking them up and just interacting with them and talking with the parents. And definitely didn't need to do that. He could have walked out the other way, but he heard them. He didn't skip them. This isn't the family that said, "Oh, Shaq, please take my table,"
Right.
and then he was just kind of being kind and nice. It's just that's who he is. He's that
Wow.
guy we all see on online with all these stories that you see.
Yeah.
And then one other cool thing about Shaq is that every time he has been in my office, I always not only have or hear people say, "Oh my God, I just talked to Shaq and he gave me time, or he played Uno with me, or he took pictures with me, or he really like made me feel like he was present." Is a lot of people have their own Shaq stories of like I remember, for example, I take care of this like Denzel Washington training day type of guy down in Miami, and him and his crew are undercover, and he was on the table right after Shaq one time, and he's like, "Bro, I got a Shaq story from when he played with the Heat," and I was like, "Yeah, what's that?" And he's like, "Bro, I remember one time me and my unit were having breakfast at the Pink. I forgot the name of it, the Pink something. I don't know. It's like I'm sure it's still there, but it's a very well known spot." And I know it's a color. If it's not pink, excuse me. It's something. But it's like a 24-hour spot. But anyway, him and his unit were doing a brief there. And Shaq had just pulled up to get some food and walked out. He had already paid for the whole table, the whole unit, once he saw they were
Wow.
law enforcement. And he's like, we never forget that. He didn't even say hi to us. He just got in and get out and just took care of it. And we were like, wow, what a guy. And man, every person, story after story after
Yeah.
story, just like you
I
hear
hear those a
online and the
lot
stuff
too.
you
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
This guy, just like I said, his heart's bigger than he is. He's super genuine and authentic. And I think that's the most lovable thing, aside from him just being an amazing athlete and just larger than life himself.
So I want to talk about
so it's
somebody
so
else.
cool.
Too,
Yeah,
man.
absolutely.
I want to talk about DJ Khaled.
Yeah, DJ
You know,
Khaled.
because we're talking about treatment,
Yeah.
treatment intervention, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And Khaled, he's very he speaks about everything.
Yeah.
He just posts online. He's got his
Guy's
camera
awesome
crew.
too.
And there was one point in time that he was dealing with some serious like back pain.
Yeah.
Something related to the golf. I'm not
Yeah,
exactly sure.
absolutely.
But he ended up getting like stem cells injected and everything
Yeah.
else. So I want to talk about how
That-
some of these other treatment
Mhm.
interventions,
Yeah.
like stem cells, go very well with the type.
It's like
because you
I
treat
was
him
saying
too.
with it's like Jude, just because someone gets adjusted doesn't mean you can't do stem, doesn't mean you can't do cold plunge.
Right.
Like we all have everything has its place, bro. And chiropractors are also usually big fans of that, especially if it doesn't come with side effects, doesn't kill your liver, doesn't affect your gut health. Then freaking go for it, bro.
Right.
Sometimes damage done is damage done. Like we get that. So as a chiropractor, obviously you got ones out there that are like, hey, we can reverse this, we can reverse that, but orthos do the same. So let's be fair. Just like I was saying earlier with research, a lot of them have always in the earlier phases of our profession, that was more anecdotal before the science came out. Now the shit's cutting edge, by the way. I never finished that. Our earlier history was anecdotal. Then it was like anecdotal with science. And now, bro, they're running fMRI scans showing brain changes with chiropractic. They're doing all types of super cool stuff. But to get to the Khaled stuff, stem cell stuff, first of all, Khaled is incredible as well. That is just another guy. One time, man, on a house call, bro, he broke my son Lincoln off with $1,000. I told him, bro, no, please, just for coming with me. And he was like, yo, Khaled, blessings, man, please. Thanks for letting us have your dad. Khaled's heart's amazing. That guy's amazing. I have also nothing but amazing things to say about that guy. Funny enough, man, he is not a fan of getting adjusted. Like,
Really?
yeah, like he gets, like, he's not a guy I see regularly. Obviously, I've seen him several times. He's been a client, and I'm gonna say he likes me, obviously, because I get the call. But normally he's not a hands-on like the cracking, the popping. Some people, no matter how good you are, no matter how you
They
cook
only
it up,
call you when they need you.
yeah,
Like,
Khaled is
there's
Khaled.
yeah.
Like I can't speak for him, but based on what I see and my interactions with him, like he's the guy who I need to be Jesus. But I always say, like, bro, like even last time I saw him, he had hit me up on the fly. I remember I was in the field playing football, and he's like, bro, yo, I need you. Can you be here like now? And I'm like, Khaled, say less. First I was like, Lincoln, yo, you want to come with me? I gotta go make a house call real quick. And when I get there, he's like, yo, I know I need to get this. Like, he knows. He's a very educated, like, this guy's tapped in, whether he does it all or not. He knows a lot about a lot, man. And he's such a great dude. So he told me, like, he's like, hey, bro, I know I need this more. I know I need to be a better client. Like I would hear from anybody, like, let's say, Sam, you did well. You got right? And then I don't see you again for months. And then all of a sudden something happens to you, you're going to pop in. I'm going to be like, Sam, bro, where the hell are you at? I'd give you the lecture. And I'd say, bro, if I didn't give a shit, I wouldn't lecture you. And you'd say, yeah, I know, Zev. I need to be in here more.
Right.
So that's Khaled. Khaled's the guy who's like, he knows. He just doesn't always follow through on something like that. And I think maybe he likes to try everything, because he has the ability and the capacity and the resources to do it all. So why not? And I always told Khaled, like, bro, the fact that I'm even on your call list, I appreciate, and I'm blessed and honored
That's
to even take
amazing.
care of you. So whether I get you regularly or I don't, I'm honored to just be in that phone. You know what I mean? And that I've walked in integrity and I've got this skill set to where when you think you need to be cracked, when you think something needs to be moved, you're like, Zev's my guy.
So a lot of these stars,
But
how do they
stem
find
cell,
you?
like getting to that also, like I
Yeah.
didn't know he did stem, but if he did, if he was doing stretching, if he was doing massage, I'm a fan of all of that. Whatever he thinks he need. Where I wouldn't be a fan of if he was here or if I'm at his house or the studio, I'm gonna tell him, bro, like what I would tell you is at the end of the day, get stem cells, great. I
Right,
have
right.
lots of clients who get them, but guess what? Stem cells, just like broccoli, just like ribeyes, just like cod liver oil, just like anything else, it don't move the joint. So
Right.
it's the same thing, bro. They could all help healing, but joints still need to be moved.
Right.
If you want to clear all the pain gate, right? Like if you want to fire on all cylinders, then we're gonna have to go through the spine. In
Yeah.
my opinion, not because I'm a chiropractor, understanding what I understand orthopedically from my training and neurologically, bro, nothing does, Sam, what the adjustment does. Hate it all day long, but
Right.
that's why we are where we are today.
Yeah.
That's why we went from anecdotal and pseudoscience to science to now cutting edge. And that's it. 2025, bro. I feel very confident in
That's
saying that.
amazing.
Even like, for example, like getting back to the science and stuff, there's no perfect study, but there's tons of stuff out there. And I think if it's non-cancerous, non-traumatic, we are the most superior, most time-tested intervention for spinal related issues.
Wow.
And I feel very confident in that. And I mean, the research since 1993, that's how far I can go back and quote if needed to, validates that, and even like, for example, when they would say things, Sam, I know I'm going off on a tangent, but like, I want to go back to that opioid thing that I talked on, because this speaks to the whole like idiosyncrasies of things, is that, uh, they would say, hey, well, you don't have any RCTs, so we can't recommend it, or we don't think it's safe, or whatever the case may be. But even with opioids, in terms of non-cancerous pain, the first RCT didn't come out till 2018.
Mm.
So we've been using it forever, and they didn't even have one RCT on it. So it's like it's the same burden of proof thing. So I know it's on a tangent, but it's that same concept of like, um, why they've hated on us, the burdens of proof, and the other things that they talk about in terms of scaring people away from chiropractic. There's no science, they'll kill you, they damage you, they want you to keep coming back. But bro, let's just flip the model. Like any of your listeners and watchers, like, any of your viewers, like, bro, just do a fair look and see,
Right, right.
and it's not chiropractic or nothing else. You know what I mean? Everything can
It's a mixture.
coexist.
Right.
But dude, do not get it twisted and think that chiropractic does not have its unique role on human health, and specifically spinal health,
Right.
and then spine's connection to our nervous system. And I think that at the end of the day is the biggest thing, is helping people understand that, with all the biohacking out there, as I've always said, whether it be a video I make on the fly or something random, is, bro, there's no bigger biohack, in my opinion, that comes with zero side effects than the chiropractic adjustment done the right way at the right time, with specificity to a person. And I mean, dude, look what you did. That guy adjusted you, right?
Right.
And you said you had instant change, which I hate, but that's awesome, isn't it? Like, bro,
Oh, it was. It really was.
you couldn't take a Tylenol and get what you got that fast, correct?
No,
Like
no,
the feeling you had. It's
No.
not that Tylenol doesn't work. It's
No.
just like,
You're talking about weeks.
re-
If,
y-
if not, it was probably close to a month
of what?
of being
Oh, feeling.
without proper movement,
Oh,
pain.
yeah.
I injured myself in the fire department
Yeah.
when that happened.
So I'm just saying, like, like how cool is that? You couldn't take a supplement to work that
Yeah.
fast. So something's happening in that process. Sometimes, in getting back to like people, like friends and family, saying, bro, they can kill you or they damage you. They just want you coming back for money. They're just money hungry. Is what I wanted to finish on that one is, so everybody knows, is like, sometimes it's the chiropractor. He just sucks. He or she sucks. Like that's the
Yeah.
reality. Not every surgeon is great. Not every food spot is great. Not every podcast is as good as yours. It just is
That's
what
the
it is.
truth,
But
man.
you still,
You ain't kidding.
thank you. But we still got to listen. We still
Right.
want to listen,
Yeah.
So it's our responsibility to say, hey, like, I have teeth, I have a spine. I need to find a provider who can care for this bad boy so I can keep up with it. Because I know certain things I'm going to feel, but I also know certain things I will not feel. And I need to trust somebody. And I need to have a business model, getting back to, so I can finish this for your viewers, so it's not just random snippets here, is that you want to get a guy or a girl, like a person is what I mean by that, is someone who's hands-on, and
Right.
then a business model right? That allows you to tap into it regularly without breaking your bank.
Right.
It doesn't mean a doctor can't make money, but it means I want a single mom with 3 kids to be able to say, I don't have to choose between me or which kid gets adjusted or I want under care at this office.
Right.
I want my whole family to be under care. Yeah, this one maybe is the sickest. This one has the worst posture. This one's in, jujitsu. But at the end of the day, like I want everyone to get care. So we
Absolutely.
need to find a model that exemplifies or matches the person's heart. You know what I mean? That way everything works together. Because if you say, hey, I had a great experience here, but they charge, like, for example, I'm not going to name a name, but my little brother lived in LA for a while, right? And my little brother has a history of migraines. So he would get migraines, and guess what helps him with the migraines?
Chiropractic.
The chiropractic adjustment, man, instantly helps him change. Like he can have a migraine, shuts down his whole day. SEM's neck lock up, vision starts to change. Bro just wants to be in a dark room and shut it down, right?
Right.
He gets an adjustment, then a couple hours, muscle tone change better, range of motion better, eyes open, wants to go work out. He's good to go, right? So his value in chiropractic is here. He loves it, right? It's a multivitamin for him,
Right.
not just an Advil. But he knows, like sometimes in front of the monitor for too long, bad sleeping positions, travel can lock him up and it could happen. So what's he thinking? He's not thinking Tylenol. He's thinking chiropractic, right? Like I
Right.
need an adjustment. I need to find a chiropractor. So he spent hundreds of dollars on first patient visits trying to find the right chiropractor. Now his brothers are chiropractors, so his standard is really high because he gets the
Of
real
course.
deal, that organic, non-GMO chiropractic, right? So he can't find one. So he says, Ev, can you help me find one? I did the same thing I would tell your viewers. The same thing I would tell you to tell a person is find a better chiropractor, find a person who's hands-on, who looks like they love what they do, who will actually adjust you, right? And then make sure the business model matches. So he finds a guy, I find him a guy who I think fits the bill. I have to do the same thing. Like I might see who might pass the sniff test easier, but I'm like, hey, Max, this looks like the guy. Go to this guy, right? So he goes to this guy, and here's what happens, and this is why I'm sharing the story. Is he goes to this guy, and the guy says, okay, it's going to be like $1,600 for 12 adjustments, right? And that's his care plan. So I say, hey, Max, I want to talk to this guy. Can you ask him if he's heard of me, if he knows me, and regardless, can you put him in touch with me? So my brother says, hey, I actually come from chiropractic. I didn't tell you that. Both of my brothers are chiropractors. Da da da. He said, oh my God, actually, I know of your brother. Da da da. I'd love to talk to him. Sure, that'd be cool. So you're on the phone and say, hey, look, I'm not trying to tell you how to do your job. I would never want someone to call me and tell me what my price points are, what my model should be. That's not what I'm doing. But I just want you to know that, your care plan is going to force my brother to use your care like an Advil. I just want you to know, nah, your brother's going to do the 12 and then he's going to get on a wellness plan and da 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 da. And I said, nah, bro, my brother, at the time, was limited on maybe resources. So I was like, he's signing up, because he's hurting right now.
Right.
But those 12 visits are not going to be regular. They're going to be, because he's paying premium for them, they're going to be when shit hits the fan.
Right.
They're going to be Advil adjustments is what I call them. When he's in crisis and he can't get it loose enough to get what he needs from his body, he's going to come in and pop in and see you. And that's exactly what my brother did. And that's the problem out there a lot with people, I find, is the business model is that it doesn't match what our care really needs to be or what it should be for someone to go through the process and actually get the light at the end of the tunnel to match what, like I'm telling your viewers right now, because sometimes chiropractic isn't pretty in the beginning, bro. Think about it. Like you have a 30 to 40 to 50-year-old man who's glued up, scarred up, doesn't eat well, barely moves. And even if he did, he's not moving well now because his spine's so unhealthy and his discs are degenerated and he's hurting. So now he comes into my office, he's plan C like this, Sam, right? He don't want to be there, but he's hurting. He's got to do something. He wants to play golf, right? So now I got to get him on the table and adjust him. I got to say, hey, look, my name's Zev, not Jesus, bro. It's going to take time. In fact, in the beginning, it might even be messy. But if you hang with me and we take these reps and you follow my lead, I will get you that win. I will get you to the Super Bowl, brother. I promise you that. Especially after I see what I see on x-ray. Obviously, I don't tell everyone that. But if I feel confident, that I'm like, look, it's going to be ugly in the beginning. You might be in pain. You might be sore. It might hurt even more for a little bit because that's what happens. Like, imagine if you hadn't worked out legs for a while and your trainer's going to put you to start doing walking lunges and squats and Bulgarian ice. Like, bro, you're going to be hurting. But we have this conception of when I walk into a chiropractor's office, I should walk out better. But yet your spine's damaged. It's your canvas that's messed up, not mine, right? So it's the chiropractor's job to also teach and educate and say, hey, I'm going to lead you through this process. This is what you can expect now, but this is what you could expect later. So that's what I mean when I say light at the end of the tunnel, right? So my brother didn't even end up using his 12 visits, for that reason. And he fell short. So I was telling him, like, no, you got it all wrong. And that's the problem with people's business model. Chiropractic, we're not one-time transaction. we're in the repetition business or the repeat business, you
Right,
know?
right.
And in my opinion, this is just me. I can't speak to everybody, but I feel at that point, knowing that we are the toothbrush, our hands are the toothbrush for the spine, then we need to come in at a price point that allows people to follow through with it so they can see it that way. You know, that's how I turn skeptics into believers, Sam. Like, yes, my adjustments are awesome, you know, like to me, they're the best. But it's also a long game for me. Like, I need to keep you under care long enough so you can go, man, I finally turned that corner.
Yeah.
I have probably over 50 active clients that I met when they were drugged up, super medicated, and were the type of people that would go, I would walk into a restaurant, and if I saw the seats were not the right seats, I wouldn't even eat there. I would walk out. They were that bad. They
Wow.
had to be that calculated with everything in their
Man,
life.
that's bad.
And why I say that is because I didn't get them right on day one. Adjustments didn't lie 30 days in, 60 days in. For some of them, it was 90. For some, it was 120. But when they turned that corner, Sam, and they didn't have to take that drug anymore, and they finally just trusted the process and they put in the work, they actually made the deposits, no lip service, bro, they're clients for life, you know,
Right.
and we have an amazing relationship because you can't deter someone like that. They,
Right.
you know, and that's a
So-
beautiful thing. And I think if the model isn't right or the chiropractor isn't good enough, person's not going to stay to see that story.
No,
That's
of
all
course.
I want to say, you know.
And-
So it's important.
100%, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel it from you that, you know you are a passionate doctor,
Yeah.
right? Chiropractic doctor that focuses on making sure it's accessible. One of the
Yeah.
things, man, I've seen online, you going out to the street,
Yes, sir.
right, and adjusting the homeless.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I mean, why do you do that?
Man, I love
Because
it.
you're not
bro.
making money.
I love it. I make zero money. In fact,
Right.
I bust my ass in that street sometimes, bro. Sometimes I adjust 10, sometimes I adjust 100, you know, and it's South Florida. So, you know, I'm doing it in the heat.
Wow.
You know, I go through a box of gloves sometimes, like, dude, it's rough, but it's a high. That's why I do it. First of all, it's fun to give people access to something they can't have access to.
Right.
And a lot of those people, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but like the National Institute of Health, the World Health Organization, they all have statistics. Again, I hate to bring up opioids again, but a lot of them that I run into in the street started with prescription medications. In fact, they put out a stat, I think it was National Institute of Health, put out a stat saying 75% of addicts comes from a prescription medication.
I believe it.
That didn't come from chiropractic.
Yeah.
So again, that's that whole not only burden of proof, but bro, we're not the only. We're not like, yeah, I'm not saying we're free of all of it. You know what I mean? Like chiropractors are guilty of certain things. Obviously, we're not perfect as a profession. But bro, that's terrible.
Right.
So now I go on the street, all these people I meet, most of them come from car accidents, prescription drugs, unnecessary back surgeries. Now they're hooked on other drugs and on the street.
Wow.
Bro, I have stuff I've never put out just because I think it's too ugly. And I don't want to put people out like that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, there's a line. I don't want to cross it. It's easy. Like I do sometimes, like, you know, we'll say something like that. But like the stuff I'm sitting on and the conversations I've had that I have recorded,
Yeah.
bro, I don't want to plant that seed
I've
in
heard
people's
them when I
mind.
worked at the fire
But,
department.
yeah, but
I
oh my
would hear
God.
it.
So you see, and I
Because
take
you,
care of
you
tons
always
of
wonder,
farmers.
it's like, how did they end up
Yeah,
here?
so, bro,
And
they
a lot of
didn't-
these people were normal, very
Yes,
successful.
bro. You see,
and
I don't
they
know if
go
you've seen the
down that-
documentaries and stuff
Yeah.
there on like on Hulu. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. But my point is, again, not throwing them under the bus, but it's like that started with a medical doctor,
Right.
not a chiropractor. That started with a very well-intentioned, very educated person who wrote a script that changed that person's life. You know what I mean? So take it for what it is. But either way, serving the homeless it started like, so this is what ended up happening. I used to do it when I was in Atlanta, right? And then when I became a dad, any of my free time went to my son, 100%. You know, I'd miss workouts, miss haircuts. Like I'm obsessed with being a father. You know, the man on the mission isn't just the kid who fell out of a tree, started getting adjusted, became a chiropractor, and then was like, damn, that's my purpose in life. That's my other, like, I love being a dad, man. Like, I love it. So with that being said, the first time I dropped him off somewhere for his first summer camp, like when I was not going to be like there or present, I was like, all right, I'm gonna grocery shop. I'm going to work out. I'm going to chill for a second, but then what do I do? You know, I was literally like, dude, what do I do with my life? I'm a loser here. Like, what do I do? You know, it's like, he's my life. So then I said, you know what? Let me hit the streets. So I did what I did in Atlanta. So I threw my table in my car, pulled up. The first place I went to was Broward Terminal.
Okay.
And I just pulled up there and I said, bro, I'm a chiropractor. You know, you got any neck or back pain? I did the normal calls to action. You know, I don't always like to talk neck and back pain, although, you know, at the end of the day, that's what's going to get someone on the table. So I was like, bro, you got any neck, back pain, anything you want me to help you out with it? All free. I'll be more than happy. Just get on the table. And that's how it started. And what happened is one brought me another because I actually got a lot of stiff arms the very first time, the second time. And then guess what happened, Sam, is the coolest thing is one person brought me a little deeper into the community. That's what it is. It's a community.
Right,
Okay,
right.
it's just not the streets. It's
Yeah.
a community. That's their language and their they have a whole terminology, a whole language that they use down there. You can't say the wrong words. You know,
Right,
you don't
right.
get the right answers. I would ask questions, I'd get the wrong answers.
Right.
I'd say, well, teach me what to say so I know how to say it. You know, so I can go wherever I need to go and communicate. So they have their own rules over there. You know, so they would bring me deeper and deeper into pockets, bro, Sam, that I would not go to.
Wow.
I would, and like I'm very bold. Like I have no fear when I go out there. I've been adjusting. There's two guys having a knife fight right next to me. Like, bro, like I've had a gun pulled on me.
Wow.
Yeah. But my point is like I don't get scared. I'm very comfortable in that environment, but there's just certain pockets that are deeper that I'm not an idiot either. Like
right, right.
I don't mind walking into someone sneezing, you know, like a chiropractor, I believe in natural immunity
Right, right.
and microdosing, that type of
Calculated
stuff.
risk is what I'm
Calculated
talking-
risk, exactly, Sam. So, but I'm not gonna just walk into there.
Right.
And it's really cool because I've been able to go to these pockets, my point is, and then help them. And they in turn have then advocated for me more. And now I have some of them have phones. So now I can call and be like, hey, it's Zev, the chiropractor. I'm coming in tomorrow at 12. Line up the troops for me. And then because that some die, it sounds crazy, but some die, some go back to prison, some move. You know, so sometimes the crowd's rotational. It's not the same people.
Right, right.
You know, so it's like sometimes I get familiar faces. Sometimes they go back to prison. I don't see them for a year. Then they come out. Like I was just on the streets a month ago. I hadn't seen a guy in a year and a half. You know, and he came up to me and was like, "Bro, so good to see you." So it's like it is like it's super cool, and I feel a part of this community, and it's like it's something I've built also, and I don't
pretty
take it
cool,
for
man.
granted because they kind of let me in a little bit,
Yeah.
and they co-sign on me, you know,
Yeah.
and then the other cool thing, bro, is it's freedom. Like I get to be raw, you know,
Right,
not
right.
that I wear a mask in my office, but it's like I say what I want. I flow with
Yeah,
it.
you just-
It's like I
yeah,
do. It's
that's
just
right.
there's this really like gritty connection, and I really like it, bro. And I can
Yeah.
get in and out. And that's the other thing is like I like to take my son. I like my son to see it, so he sees what hustle's like.
Right.
So he sees what hard work is. So he sees, look, you see Dad working in the office and how I serve people. You know, and I just don't say you have to work hard, whether it be in school or do things, but like you see how Dad works. But then look how I give him my time also. You know, so he sees that and I love that. And then I'm addicted to that as well because what I don't like are these one offs. You know how people do one thing, you know what I mean? And then that's it. I like him to see that, hey, this is just what we do.
No,
You
I
know,
love
so
that.
so what started as, hey, I need something to do and I do want to give back became way more than even I saw. And that's why I've taken it from Broward County to Miami. I go everywhere now.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'll do construction crews. I've pulled up on roofers. I get kicks out of it, bro. Like next weekend, I'm pulling up on a construction crew. They have no idea.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but a huge construction crew that's been out there busting. And what's really cool is I have clients that put me on. So they'll be like, hey, I see this crew of guys that look like they've been breaking their back for months, dude, putting roofs on these houses.
Wow.
Zev, what do you think about pulling up? And I'm like, yeah, awesome. So now the community's giving me intel and I'm getting to do these one-offs real quick. And the cool thing, Sam, is it's not taking me all day. You know, the awesome thing about chiropractic is I could do it quickly. You know, it's not massage is an hour. You know,
Right,
and it's an experience, and I love them. I love them. I'm a huge
right.
fan, and get them regularly. But chiropractic can be done so fast. You know, it doesn't take me 30 minutes. You might say, and maybe this is something you want to talk about, like, hey, Zev, why do some chiropractors take 2 minutes? Some take 5. Some people say, hey, well, if you took less time with me, aren't I getting less care, like a substandard version of care? And I always tell people, well, it really only takes me 2 minutes to adjust you. In the beginning, it might take me a little bit more. You know, but how long does it take Michael Jordan to score a basket?
Right.
Yo, you put the ball in his hands. After a while, dude, he knows exactly. He's read it already. He knows exactly where to go, right?
Yeah.
You know, so the more reps you take, especially if I have x-rays and imaging, I know what needs to get done, you know? So it's just, I get to it. A rookie chiropractor is going to be in his head. He's thinking analysis, technique. Which one does he want to do? He's watching your body language. He's seeing how things are. He's feeling, he's not confident in his hands. My hands are fearless. My brain knows the algorithm's already built in. Doesn't mean I know everything. It just means I know how to pick up on cues. I touch something fast, I feel the reflex, I pivot, I move back to it. I know if, for example, if I touch your neck real quick and you feel guarded, I know I'm going to adjust your extremities first. I'm going to adjust your wrists and shoulders and your feet first because I know that's going to bring positive proprioception to your body. It's going to make you a little more calm. Then I'm going to go somewhere else, and then I'm going to go to the neck. Then I'm going to go to the hips. So these things are not things I'm thinking about anymore. So when I graduated school, it took me like 15 to 20 minutes to adjust each person.
Wow.
Now it takes me 2 minutes. You don't get a lesser care. You get actually the best care. You know, in fact, once people see that, then they don't care. In fact, they want that care. You know, everyone in my office wants to get in and out.
Yeah.
Very few people want to sit in there for 20 minutes. To say, you want to sit down like we're on a podcast, that's a psychologist. I can't help anybody like
Right,
this.
right.
I can give you lifestyle advice. You know what I
Of
mean?
course.
Because
Which
that's
that's
something
important
chiropractors
too.
do. Yeah, which falls under the umbrella, by the way, man, of what you were saying earlier. Like, hey, why do some chiropractors have decompression tables, lasers, red lights, do functional blood work or stretching
Right.
and all these different things? And other chiropractors don't do that. And some chiropractors just chase ambulances, right? And do PI cases all day long. But the cool thing is at the end of the day, like our secret weapon is the adjustment. The one thing we could do that no one else does or should do as well as us is the chiropractic adjustment. That is our standard of care. That's our bread and butter.
Right.
And it's more than enough. You don't ask your dentist to fit you with orthotics. You don't ever say to your dentist while he or she's in your mouth, like, hey, can you tell me what food I should be eating and what I can do for my IT band? No, they're a dentist. Their specialty is the teeth, right?
Right.
You know, the chiropractor's job is the joint, is the spine, you know? So, and that's our job, to be experts at that. And a lot of times when they're not experts at that, they pivot and they start to play in other spaces.
Right,
It doesn't mean they can't, because under the umbrella of chiropractic is lifestyle. And that's what sets us apart from medicine, is not just how we want to go about it, but medicine thinks very mechanistically, like this part is only this part. And chiropractic thinks very vitalistically for the most part. Like, how does this part affect this part? And is the whole body connected, or is everything just a part and piece and we should just treat that?
Yeah, well,
right?
you guys study nutrition too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Our curriculum's laced. In fact, it's very similar. In fact, even more so in certain aspects,
Right.
up until you get to clinical rounds.
Right.
And then we go more hands-on and start to apply more anatomy, more physiology, more orthopedic testing, more of this stuff, because we are hands-on, where they go more pharmacology and they become experts in disease management and diagnosis and things that they're way superior in compared to chiropractic. You know what I mean?
Right.
Rightfully so. Thank God for that. You get hit by a car, shot by shot. Like, I want the best doctor. I don't want an adjustment.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to be adjusted after you stabilize me.
Right.
But not right then and there. Again, time and place. But the adjustments are secret weapon, but under that comes lifestyle. And that's something we recommend to everybody. When you're under our care, a chiropractor will very commonly say, get with a nutritionist, get with a dietitian, go get your blood work done, or maybe he or she does it himself, because it's under our licensing in most states that we could do that. And if they're really passionate about that, they can. Some chiros are super passionate about functional movement,
Yeah.
so that's all they do. They're doing more like physical therapy stuff than actual chiropractic. Not my job to say what's right or wrong, but
Right.
that's the impression. So when you say if that's the kind of chiropractor you went to, then that's what you're describing, but that's not what you're going to get in my office.
Right.
It doesn't mean what I'm serving is wrong or what you're serving is wrong. It's just, what are you passionate about? So why everyone has 20 different chiropractic experiences, because they're getting what that chiropractor is passionate
Right.
about.
Of course.
And the bottom of the barrel would probably be, well, they just accept what insurance gives them. So then a patient wants to use their insurance because they pay a lot of money for it. So then they walk in, the doctor's office already knows what they're going to do, because they already have what they're going to get reimbursed
That's
for.
their blueprint at that point.
You see what I mean? But then that person, Sam, walks out and says, that was a chiropractor's office? Like, that's what I got,
Right.
that sucked. I hate chiropractors. Like,
Yeah.
that's crap. I would never
No,
go
I
back.
get it.
Then I run into them in Whole Foods and they're like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm a chiropractor. They're like, ooh.
So, Dr. Sev, man,
Yeah.
so let me ask you this. I got a lot of respect for what you're doing
Thank
out
you,
in the
man. I appreciate
community,
it.
right?
Thank you.
Going out and helping people who typically would not even know about chiropractic
Yeah.
or don't have the means to do so.
Mhm.
So I want you
Mhm.
right now,
Mhm.
call out another chiropractor
Mhm.
to go ahead and do the same.
Did you do the same?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have a chiropractor. I mean, like a specific chiropractor or
Any
any
chiropractor
chiropractor?
here in South Florida, you got to know other chiropractors. Call them out.
Yeah, no, I don't want to say a name, Sam.
Call
I don't
them
want to
out.
say a name.
Call them out.
But I will say this. I'll call out every chiropractor in South Florida, and I'll call out every chiropractor, in the world, really. Anybody who is watching this show right now, any chiropractor who stumbles across this soundbite, we have a duty and an obligation to
Serve.
protect, to not only serve, but to protect our profession as well and clean
Right.
the slate for people. And you better master your freaking craft
Absolutely.
and serve it like you're a Michelin chef, because that's the level you're competing with me at, and we're competing.
That's the truth.
And I'll call that out as well,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, I got 20 around me, and as well as there's room for everybody, we're still competition. You're 3 miles away, you're 5 miles away. Who they going to choose?
Right.
And I'm reading, I'm studying. I put in the work every day. I did when I was a student. I do at 43 because I care that much. And I always want to have the information available to sit down the way I would say, why didn't your doctor sit down and explain what the adjustment's doing or not doing? Did they educate and teach you, or did they just scoff and dismiss you and make you feel bad? So whether it's vaccines, whether it's pharma, whether it's adjustments, whether it's food and nutrition. I want to be that person who, even if I'm not offering that service, I can say, this is what I read. Let me share it with you. And if you want to talk about it, I'm more than welcome. We could do that, you know? But, in order to do that, you have to put in the work. And I don't think chiropractors in Florida, especially South Florida, I think a lot of them are weak. I think they're lazy. And I think they're being pimped out. So, get your hands dirty, get out into the street.
Yeah, man.
And by the way, we have rock star chiropractors as well. There's awesome ones.
Yeah,
I
100%.
think there's not as many. I think that's very obvious, which is why we have these conversations. But yeah, you got to get your hands dirty. And, a lot of times chiropractors will go on mission trips outside the United States and lay hands on, and I would actually get some ugly messages when I first started doing this, and chiros would see it and they'd be like, yo, why are you serving them? Why don't you come over to Haiti? Why don't you come to over here in India? Why don't you come over here and, do these people? Don't waste your time. We need it worse, And I'm like, bro, the mission's right here. This is my country. These are my people. Not that I wouldn't go outside of there, but regulations change, Like,
Right.
like I have people right down the street that are struggling. This is my backyard. Like, I need to take care of my home first. Like Mother Teresa said, like, sweep your own doorstep. You know what I mean? Like,
Respect.
if we just
I
did
like
that,
that. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what all doctors, not just chiros. I think, man, Sam, if I could call out more than chiros, like doctors are, can I say the F word here?
Yeah.
Doctors are fucking lazy, bro. Doctors are being pimped out and overpaid like our athletes. They're not doing a fraction of the work they should do. They're seeing 10 patients a day. They're not studying the journals. They're getting pimped out and educated by big pharma. We know that. Everyone knows the curriculum, okay, and where it comes from, the majority of the curriculum. We know that. We know the literature and how it's being passed. And the orthopedics that are winning over clients right now, the orthopedics that are going to win in 2025 and beyond, the neurologists that are going to win, the primaries, the OBs, the pediatricians who are going to win, whether they know it or not, or they want to hear this or not, are the people that are the ones that are going to advocate for whatever's making that patient better, whatever's making that client feel happy, be less medicated, less dependent on drugs, and improving the quality of their life.
Absolutely.
And I could tell you time after time, Sam, where I'll sit down and they'll be like, oh, I had a great orthopedic. I'm like, oh, you had a great orthopedic? Wow, I never hear that. What was so great about your orthopedic? Like, they did a surgery on you and the recovery was clean, the surgery was clean. And Sam, you know what they tell me? They're like, no, I didn't even have surgery. He actually just sat down with me and talked to me and gave me my options and said, well, surgery's not really what I recommend at first. I think you should try this, that, and the other thing. And then I'm always here to help you. You know what I mean? If needed, then we can go this route. And I said, well, wait a minute. You're telling me he just sat down with you and talked to you and gave you what you just told me is informed consent? And that orthopedic is awesome? Yeah. You see how low the fucking standard is, bro?
Wow.
Like, bro, if a pediatrician, if an OB, if a primary, if an orthopedic, if a neurologist sat down and said, bro, you're getting adjusted? That's awesome. You should be taking care of your joint. Joint care is important. Over 70% of medical visits, last time I read, were for neck, back, and shoulder pain. Like, that's an issue. So
Right.
these people, that's how they're getting on drugs. Anti-inflammatories are the top 3 leading prescriptions being taken and filled at pharmacies right now because people are inflamed and they're achy because their joints are bad.
Right.
Yeah, you could say weight, say other things, lack of movement, too much movement, the wrong movements, all that. But bro, it's still, their joints aren't being moved. They're not adjusted. Their posture's off. Their alignment's terrible. Their loads and compensations are obvious, and the things are wearing down. And these doctors are just writing prescriptions left and right instead of saying, hey, look, we can get you out of jail right now because you need to sleep and get back to work tomorrow. You see, I get that. I'm not an idiot.
Yeah.
Time and place. But it's like hookahs. It's like, bro, hookahs serve their place, but it's like, bro, if you need this much cushion, for your back or it hurts, I think you have a bigger problem. I mean, in 2030, we can be wearing shoes like this,
Right.
so it's the same thing. It's like me and Silos were just talking about that earlier. It's like, bro, it's like, use it to get out of jail now. But if you're not going to make lifestyle changes to get off drugs and to take less chemistry, you're just selling yourself short, So the pediatricians, the orthos, these people that are going to advocate for this type of stuff, imagine if an ortho sat down and said, hey, look, like, oh my God, Sam, I just had a client yesterday. My last day of the week was yesterday adjusting, and brand new client. And I said, hey, who brought you in here? And and I didn't even know the ortho. And he said, I actually went to the orthopedic, Zev, because I was having sciatic pain and it was leading to really bad plantar fasciitis in my foot. And I got on the orthopedics table and he just took a look at my foot and then palpated my tendon and said, oh man, your tendon's super inflamed. But you know what? I see your leg length is off. And he's like, stand up. So this is what the orthopedic says. You ready? Says, stand up. So he has the guy stand up and he does a posture eval. And he said, your shoulders look off. Your rib cage looks twisted, bro. He's like, are you getting adjusted? Do you go to a chiropractor? And he said, actually, no, I'm not. And he's like, bro, I recommend you go to a chiropractor.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know the ortho. But guess what? Now that guy loves his fucking ortho. And that's my point is like, first of all, he doesn't get paid to recommend me. So we've
Right.
always said, like, for any of your viewers, we didn't touch on this, but a lot of times they'll say, well, why do they recommend PTs but not chiros? Why are you guys outside the profession? Why doesn't medicine adopt you? You know, and the reality is we're instead of, not in addition to. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like
right.
physical therapists, they get paid for that. You know, they get E&M, evaluation and management. They could bill for that. They could oversee that. So they're in addition to standard medical care
Right,
PT,
right.
you know, chiropractic's instead of.
Right.
So we're outside in that, you know, mostly because we don't back down. We don't want to be adopted, you know, as a whole, as an entity, as a lobbying body. We say, fuck you.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I mean? We're
yeah.
our own. Don't adopt us. Don't
Yeah.
manipulate us. You know,
Right.
they've tried lots of times over the years, by the way. Do you know that chiropractor sued the AMA, the American Medical
For
Association?
what?
For trying to destroy and dismantle the reputation of chiropractic.
Oh,
Everything we're
wow.
talking about on this podcast today, why people say what they say about chiropractic.
That's
They
funny.
want your money, they damage you, witchcraft, voodoo, they're unscientific, they're cults.
Wow.
Everything we say, everything that's going on, Sam, in 2025 stems from way back in the day, bro. Look back to see ahead,
Wow.
right? So that's what was going on. It's always been going on. So in like, I forgot the timeline, 1970s, 1980s, I think is when it settled. But the Supreme Court, bro, this went to the Supreme Court. They found the AMA, the largest medical lobbying body, guilty of trying to destroy the profession of
That's
chiropractic, man.
crazy.
And your
Wow.
viewers should know it sounds like a freaking Netflix show
Wow.
or Hulu documentary, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But that's what we're up against, man. That's the chip on the shoulder. And, you know, getting back to what I was saying is that's why all doctors need to work harder, not just chiropractors. All doctors need to serve more. All doctors need to hit the streets. All doctors need to serve freaking the construction worker, the roofer, the people that are breaking their back every day and give them better options and just better things, man. We need to make everybody better, you know,
Yeah.
and they're getting paid fat. You know, like I'll give you an example. I always crack jokes with my clients because I don't know if you know this, but we also host classes for our clients. I've
Oh,
been doing it
nice.
for over 2 years. I pay out of my own pocket. I pay a gym and a private coach, like a great coach who's like, you know, functional movement. Like they're just a little more
Right, right.
expanded, you know, than
Yeah.
just let's do sets and reps of benches and squats. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just that type of person who's more like, let's say, more developed, let's say, or more seasoned or more educated can at least handle a larger demographic with
Right.
injuries and stuff. Not that we need them to be PTs or anything, but one of the things I started to do was as my reputation grew, as we started to help and serve and really help more people, not just like, hey, he adjusted Khaled, so I'm going to him, but like we really earn it with fucking people every day. Like I adjusted probably about 200 and change yesterday, Sam.
Wow.
You know, and I just say that because I fucking earned it with people yesterday. Like every single person, I wanted to have what I call the Shaq effect in 2 to 5 minutes, 8 minutes, whatever I needed. You know, one guy needed 20, I gave him 20 yesterday, you know, because he had a
Yeah.
complicated history and he was a day one. Everyone gets what they need. You gotta wait. But, you know, we do it. We serve
Right.
relentlessly. But my point with that is like, dude, you know, so many doctors make more money than me. Dentists, you know, the average dentist is gonna make more money than me. Plastic surgeon fucking makes way more money than me. Orthopedics, neurologists, bro, all these guys are banking, bro.
Right.
Insurance wise, banking, man, make shit ton of money,
Right.
way more than the chiropractor, right? Yet I to go out of my pocket, you know, because I don't think God need to pay to be on Google, let's say, or run ads as much as maybe the average person does. So I reallocate those dollars back into my own tribe, and I pay for my people to have access to awesome people on my pod. They don't have to pay, no strings attached. There's no call to action, no funnel, no email grabs, no bullshit, no
Right, right.
upsells. In fact, I tell every coach, whoever the new coach is or whoever's going to do it, no enticements, no nothing. Pure love, give, and serve. If it's a mom, it doesn't matter who it is. Give them everything they need. Just be awesome at what you do, love what you do, and provide massive value for my
Amazing.
clients, man. And we've been
Amazing.
doing that for over 2 years. And I always crack jokes because it's like it's another way to give back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. Like all doctors with all their education, their skill sets, whatever it is, bro, it's not about just giving back, but I'm saying like work fucking harder, stretch your day. Why not work another harder? I know you grind, right?
Yeah, you
Like
have to.
you have to,
Yeah.
but they don't feel they have to.
Right.
And that's the thing. And a lot of chiropractors, even if they're doing PI and driving Lambos and Ferraris, they don't have to. That's the fucking
That's
problem.
the difference between living life with purpose and without purpose. Right?
Yeah,
you
you're
gotta
right.
have a
You're
strong
right.
purpose. That's looking out for the other person, not just yourself.
You're right, man. Set
Yeah,
yourself on fire. Set yourself on fire, and people will come
Yeah.
and watch you burn from all over.
Exactly.
You know, even if it's
Yeah.
Shaq. You know, and
Yeah.
and you know, one last. I don't know if we're wrapping up here, but you know, I'll tell you a really funny story. Is when I started adjusting like the Shaqs of the world and stuff. You know, and had that honor. You know, I'm not a person to clout, by the way. I'm not the person who walks around and is like, hey, you know, like that's never my marketing
Right, right,
angle.
right.
But one of the things that I noticed when I got around enough of these higher profile people, I found it fascinating that they loved watching my story, like my general pop stories that I used to run a lot that I should probably do a lot more. I just don't always have the time and want to put people on cameras, but they would say, "Yo, I remember you. I saw this one thing that you did and I was following that story. I love what you did with that guy." And I'm like, "You saw that?" He's like, "Yeah, I thought like he might want to watch an athlete get
Right,
his
right.
neck cracked or something." You know what I mean? But funny enough, the higher profile, like celebrity types, the people who are in limelight, right? These people love to watch general pop as much as general pop wants to watch the athlete or the high profile or the celebrity figure get
Right.
adjusted. So it's funny that dynamic how it works, and being in
Very
that setting,
interesting.
it reminded me, this is why I'm bringing it up. It reminded me that like, when Shaq says, "Hey, I saw that story, that was really cool." It reminded me, man, I got to go hard in the
Right.
paint, because my work matters.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
not just about money, but it's like imprint,
Right.
like he wasn't a fan of chiropractic before me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That to me, I slept well at night. I said, "Man, I changed this guy's opinion of my
So
profession." Like,
that
fuck
means you
yeah.
got to go harder now.
Then you
Yeah.
gotta go
Yeah.
harder,
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
let's have a little
Yeah.
fun, man.
Yeah,
So
let's have fun.
one of my favorite podcasts is called The Diary of a CEO.
Yeah.
Stephen Bartlett.
Okay.
He came out with these conversation cards.
Nice.
So I'm gonna let you go ahead and open that.
Okay, sweet.
Shuffle it.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Pick one card. Read it out loud.
Okay.
And answer it. And we're wrapping up here. This is going to be one of the last things we do here.
Let's do it. All right. Get this first one. Is it ever appropriate to hurt someone's feelings? You want me to say the name too? Like Richard Hammond at the bottom?
No.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
if you want.
So is it ever appropriate to hurt someone's feelings? I think it's appropriate sometimes to show someone a boundary. And if that hurts their feelings, then I think that's a healthy way to do so, especially if it leads to productive change.
Amazing.
Period.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yep.
Do another one.
Absolutely. Let's keep rolling, man. I like this. If you could go back to one era in civilization, what era would you pick? Why and what would your job be? Well, sticking to the theme of how much I love what I fucking do, I would be a chiropractor, and but I wouldn't choose to go back, bro. So, I mean, the only other time I guess I'd like here is like that marvelous Miss Maisel era. A little bit old school. That like, what is that like? I don't even know the timeline of that. Like, the Frank Sinatra days, man.
Oh, like the
What timeline is that?
60s or
60s,
something?
70s,
Yeah.
like some whatever
Yeah.
that is.
That was-
I think that'd be a cool vibe. That looked like a cool time. But I don't know much about it. I vibe with the music. Whenever
Yeah.
I see a show or something that kind of
Yeah.
reflects that, I definitely I'm attracted to that. So if I had to say one that,
I feel like
um,
people lived more in the present back then.
they
Because there
did,
wasn't all
dude.
the computers and the phones. Right?
100%,
Yeah.
bro. The days seemed longer, the stress was less, and they still felt accomplished and happy.
Yeah.
It was nice. But I do love this era as well. But I still would be a chiropractor. But we used to get thrown in jail back in the day for doing what I do every day, like I did 200 times yesterday. So I ain't trying to go back as a chiropractor. But technically, that's what I'd want to be. When you're at the end of your life and you're looking back over it, what will you be proudest of, or what will you regret the most? I'll be proudest of being a father. The unselfishness, like the selflessness that I give my son, and the bond I make and max every minute before I go to work, after I go to work. I'm gonna be proudest of that. I could already tell. Second to that will be chiropractic. And the way I talk about my parents, my family, the way I love my mom and dad. I'm proud of that. I'm super proud of that. In fact, I see it now as a parent, the way I talk about my mom and dad to him. I love as well. I think that's super important. And I think, as you get older, you start to think like, well, who's going to tell the story? They got to tell the story.
Right.
It's like, I'm Jewish. And I remember one guy telling me like, I didn't maybe take it as seriously, but just this one thing, like I love being Jewish, but I mean, like, I'm not an advocate. I'm not a student of the game, right? Of that religion. And he said, Zev, well, think about it like this. At minimum, just understand, because we're so small as a population. So, as time goes on, you want that story to go to the next person, like any other
Right.
culture or any other tribe, right? We all have it. It's not just Judaism. But hearing it from that perspective, I said, yeah, you're right. So I'm super proud of that. I'm super proud of what I've done professionally, but most importantly, I'd probably say my dad. What I regret the most is being stubborn as a child sometimes with my parents, actually, to that same thing. It's like I love my mom and dad so much, and I realize now I was a great kid, a great son, but I also realize, man, just there's moments, because life was short for my mom, so there's moments where I kind of go back and I'm like, fuck, mom, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
that I say to
yeah.
myself. But other than that, man, I don't regret much, I think
Amazing.
I've done a good job of that. You want me to hit one more or leave it at that?
No, we'll
One,
leave it there. We'll
leave
leave
it
it
there.
there.
Absolutely.
So the last thing I got
Hmm.
here for you, man,
Yeah.
if there's any
Hmm.
viewers or
Yeah.
listeners that really resonate with
Yeah.
today's message,
Yeah.
what is that one thing you can lead them off with?
Oh man. If you've had I'm a chiropractor, but I don't want to make this about getting into a chiropractic office, nor mine this show in about that. It's about giving you a healthier perspective on things and reminding you how important health is, period.
Right.
Whether you choose the chiropractic route or whether you choose other routes. But at the end of the day, no one as they get older regrets taking care of themselves. And I think every viewer, every listener needs to always remind themselves to put in those deposits because every day we're making withdrawals, whether you feel it or not. And obviously, chiropractically speaking, I could tell you, like I was talking to earlier, is if anything that I said you vibe with, or you go, yeah, you maybe like what I say, maybe the tone at which I say it, you feel my passion. Well, it is fucking authentic, so find someone similar, even if it's 70% and you want to give chiropractic another try. Find the right model, find the right person, find someone, even if it's not my style, find someone and explore that option because it's one of the best biohacks when done consistently and repeatedly that you could see. And it just gives your family and yourself a lot of security because at the end of the day, it builds resilience within your spine and that's your lifeline. And that adds to quality of life. And that's what we're talking about at the end of the
Right.
day. Why do we exercise? Why do we do those things outside of aesthetics and energy right now? I want to have quality of life. So I would just remind them, fire on all cylinders, check all boxes, try to do something every day, build great habits, and find providers, not just chiropractors, find institutions, find mom and pop spots that you vibe with that make you feel like you're loved, and cared for, and they value that relationship. And just go all in, man, because that's it at the end of the day,
Amazing.
and that's what I would say. That's what I'd leave you guys with.
And where can people find you?
Well, they can find me on Instagram at Dr. Zev TV. They could find me on the website, drzevtv.com. I'm in Davie, Florida, and I'm always open. I'm the type of guy who will answer a message. I don't have a large team behind me. I just have a small, efficient team. We love all what we do. Shout out to my team because at the end of the day, I couldn't do anything without them. And if you read any of our Google reviews or any review or talk to any of our clients in the street, it's not even me. They always go, it's your team, it's your team, it's your team. Like anybody else, I didn't get here by myself, and anybody who goes long enough and hard enough and builds something worthy enough always says that, and I feel the same way. Like my team's awesome. Shout out to Orlando Perez specifically. He's been my dog forever and has helped me build this. And dude, he's just the foundation of my office. So that's where you guys can find us. I'm in Davie. You have my website. You got my IG. I love and appreciate you all for listening. I'm sorry if I went on some tangents,
No,
but
all
the
good.
topic's just so broad, bro, and there's so
Yeah.
many pieces. It's one of those things that requires almost like a 7-part docu-series. But at minimum, I hope I planted seeds, connected dots for the viewers to help understand maybe neurologically, orthopedically, beyond like cracking necks and backs, what might be happening, in the body that can improve human health, not just get you out of neck pain and back pain, and how important health generally is, So,
Fantastic, doctor. That this was important, a
yes,
great
sir.
message, and I
Thank you.
appreciate you, man.
Yeah,
It
thanks
was
for
a
having me, bro.
pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, man. Appreciate that so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Guys, you heard Dr. Sev here, man. It's you got to think outside of the box. You can't just be stuck in that system that we get programmed in that system, right? There's other things that you have to do with your body. Chiropractic is not just about having neck or back pain, right? When you manipulate that spine, you allow the body to flow. You allow blood to flow. So if you haven't done it, I think it's time to actually take that step, think a little bit deeper on how to really make it part of your health ecosystem. Guys, make sure you share this podcast with all of your friends, family. Make sure you subscribe, like, do all that fun stuff, and we'll see you for the next one.